Yes, hello guys. You welcome to the Candid Talk Podcast. Who is this? Jibril, are you joining us again?
Yeah, my network is horrendous. I
Okay,
keep going off and on.
that's
So I have to
fine. No
leave and
worries.
come back in.
Can't
No
hear you.
worries. No worries.
Yeah, but I'm back now.
Okay. Stanley, what did you say?
I think I'm also having. Hold on. I think I might have to switch my network too because.
But we can
That's
hear you
fine.
clearly though.
Yeah.
Just hold on, please. Sorry.
Stanley, I can actually hear you. It's
We can
fine.
hear you clearly. We can see you and hear you clearly.
Yeah, we
You
can hear
said?
you.
We can see
We
you
can
and
hear
hear you
you. We can
clearly.
hear you clearly.
Is my network okay?
Yeah.
See,
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, it's
It
fine.
is. It's very
Perfect.
good.
Yeah? Okay.
Yeah,
okay,
yeah,
sure.
it's perfect.
yeah, the one that is
Okay,
okay.
so last week we discussed the Magu arrest and his release on bail and the issues we have with EFCC, and Stanley spoke a lot about how we can reform the system and the changes that we need to make in the judiciary. So now I think we should speak about the bombshell. I think it came in during the week, the NDDC issue. I think we should try and discuss that. But if we still want to go back to the Margot issue, I think that should be fine too. So, Jibril, did you follow that story, the NDDC story? Did you follow it well?
Yeah, I did. I did
Okay.
to an extent at least. I
Okay.
allowed me.
Can you just briefly give us like a high level summary of the whole madness?
Okay. Basically, from my understanding of things, it all started with some reports about misappropriation of certain funds. And I also know that before the appointment of the current Minister for Niger Delta Affairs, there had been some whisperings about how funds were managed in that particular area of things. So basically, they wanted to bring in someone that understood the environment, basically a politician, but at the same time that could stifle these corrupt practices, so that when money is put out for certain things, it will be done. But I think very quickly, if you notice that almost immediately after Akbabi was announced and Kiyama was also announced as the junior minister, it didn't take 1 week before Kiyama was taken off that role and it was left with Akpabio. And shortly after, there were some issues. It now became an issue of a surprise audit. I don't think any of them saw the audits coming. So it created a lot of wildfire. When it now became the issue of the money that was spent on COVID or whatnot, and then people started talking about some monies were appropriated and certain things that the monies were released for were not coming to light. It now became an issue of, okay, let's have a sit down. The National Assembly called for, through their committee on Niger Delta issues, let's have a sit down and let's have an audit. Now, I think the first place we missed the trick was, if you are going to have an audit, you should get a private sector third party to actually do a financial audit. I think, however it is done, their own report should be independent of what comes from the National Assembly or whoever is asked to head the committee, because we've noticed that if you want to get things done in Nigeria to a certain extent and you can't totally exclude it, but you want to reduce the impact of somebody leveraging on the decisions or the solution or the outcome of that process with his power, you need to get a third party. It's like in anything, in construction, in legal affairs, when you have two people dealing with themselves, if you want to do an audit, you need to get a third party, an arbitrator or whatnot. You don't get somebody from that same mix to do it if you want to have a totally transparent process. And now all of a sudden we're hearing all these numbers. The big issue for me is not the fact that they are finding out that some monies have gone for COVID or whatnot. The big issue for me is that this commission is and NDDC is about 12 years old, or I don't know how old. Someone should correct me if I'm wrong. It's at least 12, 13, 12 years old if I'm correct. And they cannot say what highest crime rates in terms of we have been putting out money and nobody has been asking ourselves how that money. Nobody came out smelling of roses at that commission. The minister to the Mr. Ojo or whatnot. And that's the whole drama about somebody fainting or whatnot. My question is, will all of this not be swept under the rug after a few weeks? Will we really get to the root of this thing? And even if for one reason or the other, nobody gets punished, what happens going forward? How is the process changed? How is the first of all, I don't know what's your political stance about it, but I don't see why there should be a special commission for how affairs are handled in one particular geopolitical zone in the country. I don't get it. I personally don't get why you have to set up NDDC. I don't get the reason why we have to set up NDDC and be specially funding them for what reason? Do you understand?
That's a big political debate there. I think I wish we had someone from Niger Delta here to lock horns with Jibril on that. I don't have any stance on it, but I think that's another key debate. I'm pretty sure maybe Wale will have something to say about that. But so Bane, do you want to comment?
Yeah, I can just comment quickly on that. Simply put, I agree with you. NDDC is an abnormally it's an anomaly. Sorry, not abnormally. It's an anomaly as far as we're concerned. For a country that works. The reason why we have NDDC as we have loads of other anomalies in Nigeria, simply because we don't have the correct structure. So if we had source control, if we had a structure, if we had a truly federated structure where people who owned, where you found the natural resources, owned it, exploited it and paid tax to the central government, or shared a bit of the revenue that they got with the central government, and there will be no need for NDDC. So the truth of the matter is that Niger Delta is the region laying the golden egg. So NDDC is set up as a way of saying, okay, thank you. It's a patch. It's a patch, really. It's a political patch over, which really shouldn't be. So I don't want to talk too long about it because we haven't got time. Yeah, that's why I think is happening. That's why I think NDDC, in our current context, is important. Is needed.
Okay.
So if I jump in, so first of all, Jibril, you're right, but I just wanted to point out that Kiamo wasn't reassigned. He requested to leave the ministry. He requested for the president to reassign him to a different ministry. Maybe because he didn't feel there was a chance he would be able to work with Akpabio or whatever the reason. But one misconception was that he had prosecuted Akpabio when he was hired by EFCC to prosecute Akpabio. Okay. That wasn't also true. I just wanted to clarify that. But then the other thing, two things I wanted to point out is, if the president set up, and this is also in connection with what Jibril said, if the president set out to clean up NDDC based on the things that we have heard now happening in the past, and the agenda was to make it a better run agency, I don't think that Akpabio is the perfect or is the right candidate to assign that portfolio to.
Up Nepal. Okay. Wale.
Yes, boss.
Do you want to bail your friend out here? I think he's had to go away for a short while to fix his. Let's not talk too much about it.
It's an interesting topic, and I stand behind Jibril. There was clearly no need. I mean, I lived in Port Harcourt for a couple of years, about 4 or 5 years, and that's probably my only claim to being able to give any real insight into what's happening in the NDDC, which was formed in 2000, by the way.
Yeah,
And
I was actually going to say that 20 years ago by
yeah,
So that's
Obasanjo.
20
yeah,
years. What
it's 20
does
years
he
old.
have to show for it?
Nothing.
20 years old,
As
and
always.
20 years old, and it was formed as
20
it was
years.
formed, it was formed
20 years.
because it was
Well,
formed
the same
because
thing can be asked of NNPC. The same thing can be asked of literally every part of Nigeria. So
Yeah.
no,
I mean,
no, but you see,
20
if you're going to
years.
approach things, let's also put context into things. Why was the NDDC created? It was basically created because there was a call by the Niger Delta. F- there was a call for listening. What's the right word? There was a shout of neglect.
Oh, it threats for secession.
There was a shout of neglect.
Dreadful decision.
No, that was not why. That was not why. Actually, it was on the back of the militancy. It started from the OD days, Obasanjo's
Yeah.
days, all those things.
Even before then,
Militancy,
the Ken
you know.
Saro-Wiwa saga, all the issues.
Yes, what Ken and his team were asking for was different from an NDDC agenda. What Ken and his team were asking for basically was reasonable stuff to say, look, we're not saying don't take oil from this place, but do it with regard for the environment, with regard for the lives and livelihood of people that live in this place. And there are sustainable ways to do these things.
Yep.
And just listen to us. That was the call. And if you wait on the balance, there might be one or two things. It's a reasonable call. But
Very
the
reasonable call.
NDDC itself was created because of the violence that was happening in Nedeta, the bunkering and everything, which led to all sort of things. People saying, "Look, this will continue." It was a militancy, and then Obasanjo actually, Obasanjo's team said, "Okay, we want an agency. It shouldn't have been a ministry, right? The original plan was for an agency to develop the youth and develop infrastructure." I'm saying this because in 2005, I was doing my internship with Halliburton, and I was in Lagos office. But very, very quickly on a Monday morning, unplanned, you get on a chopper to on air or to and you go and do some things and come back. And I remember in 2005 that the Halliburton wanted to build a top, top, top class primary school in Bayelsa, Sagbama local government to be precise. And I was there. I was a university student. I was just, taking notes, records, but I was enjoying the flights up and down, things like that. And, the sad thing for me as how many year old person was that right before my eyes, the chiefs of that Sagbama local government, not the elected local government chairman, the chiefs asked us to rather bring the money for the school. This is Halliburton. To bring the money for the school and they will build it themselves. Instead of Halliburton building that school. The school was going to have its own independent power plant, all those things. It was a well thought out plan. And so that was the end of that project. So, of course, so think about what could have happened with a properly run school. It was going to be something like a British. Think about it, just something like that, and just put it there, and top. So that's the whole idea of NDDC, right? Education, education, education. Get people formally educated, just to give back to society. And then very quickly it became a ministry that started having budgets, all those things, a full-fledged ministry. And then we started having minister, and then we now started having junior minister, which should not have been. That was not the plan. And so when people start laying claim to federal constituted to resource allocation, then you have this kind of problem, because now the whole purpose is gone. It becomes just another ministry, just another government engine, and there's no accountability, because now it's no longer an agency that is under any kind of scrutiny. It becomes a full autonomous ministry like anybody else, and then absolute power, corrupts absolutely. So that was why it was created. That's how things got bad. And as you know, I have personal problem with so many things in Nigeria, but what you see with NDDC is a reflection of this person that fainted was appointed in 2020. Did you know that? So, give or take, this guy is 7 months in the office. I'm looking at my calendar. Give 7 months and look at the allegation
before him.
So if this guy spends 4 years, what's going to happen?
So you
can already see what happened. I was giving you an example of what happened in 2005, of when we wanted to build a school. So you can see the culture. You can see, and if as of 2005, only God knows how much taxation, how much of things have gone into that, but it will never develop. You see, things will never develop in Niger Delta. If you like, have 5 agencies, 5 ministries there, to never develop, because there's no, you cannot, anything you don't measure, you can't grow it. You can't grow it. I'm beginning to speak from a place of anger and passion, so I'm just going to.
Okay. Bane, let me come to you, Stanley. I'm still going to let you finish your thoughts. So, based on what Wale said, if you can develop the Niger Delta based on the strategies that we've been trying to employ, what do you think is a logical or a realistic strategy that can help the region? Because anything that helps the region brings stability to the goose that lays the golden egg, right? like Stanley will always say.
Yeah, I mean, like Wale has said, if we don't measure it, we can't really develop it. It's absolutely correct. And like I've said, the very fact that we have a ministry for NDDC is not normal. So that's, that in itself is a problem. So I think we're using the wrong tools to try and solve a problem that we really have. But you've also, in your question, you said, what is a realistic rule? Because we're living in the realms of reality. If you ask me, if I had a magic wand and I was to obviously wave it over Nigeria, it will be that we structurally reform so that there will be no need for some of these usual extra government departments and organizations that we have. We have no place and no need for. That is the wishful me. So I think the realistic me would say, I like the idea. There's an idea that Wale talked about that I really like, and I think we can apply it to even the Niger Delta situation, which is to have a third party, which is to have a, or was it?
That was Jibril.
That was Jibril. Sorry, Jibril. Sorry, Jibril. Sorry, I apologize, Jibril. There's a need for us to have a third party to, within the confines of our strange setup at the moment, to get the NDDC to work, at least achieve some of the aims that it was set up to achieve, to probably bring in a third party that oversees some of his core functions. In the first place, I feel like I completely agree with Wale. It shouldn't be a ministry. It should at best just be an extra government department. It shouldn't even exist if we are normal people. But we're not normal. So I think it will be a case of having my opinion again, like a third party, like a consulting firm. I know it's a bit tricky these days. Most consulting firms don't have the best. They don't particularly have the best reputation, in the world. And I'm not going to say more than that before I get into trouble. But I think that could be the kind of way we might decide to go about it. The problem, even with that, is that we're like Wale has mentioned, we are dealing with attitudes, entrenched attitudes here. How do you change that? How do you change? And you see this attitude up and down the country. I studied agricultural economics, right? And one of the things we talk about, changing farmers' attitude, which I think is the wrong approach anyway. As again, we're dealing with reality, so we have to work within reality. One of the problems, one of the reasons why a lot of the indigent farmers in Nigeria won't adopt, say, like new type of, say, cassava, for example, is because they're just not comfortable with it. Do you understand? You have entrenched attitudes like that up and down the country because most of the time people are comfortable with what they know, with what works, what is physical, and what is tenable. I don't want to preach too much, but I think that the best solution, given our current situation, to get a third party. First of all, I don't know the process of not making it a ministry or a ministry. First of all, make it not a ministry. Again, whittle down a lot of the porks. There are too many porks in that, as with most government departments. Thin down, the personnel, right size that organization. And like I said, get like a third party, not the National Assembly, because they also are almost like an interested party. Get like a third party that's an independent party to sort of overlook their functions in such a way that they have their independence to a large extent. But again, I'm not comfortable with the whole with it existing. I mean, call me an idealist. I just keep going back to it. It shouldn't exist. We shouldn't have NDDC Nigeria. We shouldn't. We absolutely do not need it. We need to move past some of these issues that we're struggling with. The solutions are there, but obviously it's difficult.
Brani, are you talking about a third party auditor or a third party administrator?
Yes, sorry, I didn't make that clear. A third party administrator, actually.
Okay.
So I know this sounds strange, but I think we tried it briefly in the last days of the Obasanjo presidency. I know firsthand because my parents worked in the Ministry of Education. I know that in the Ministry of Education, I remember very well that consultants were running a lot. There were people from outside running a lot of the top to bottom, operations and how things were run. Trying to improve. They were there to see how things were run, measure, like Wale said, and improve processes. Obviously, the people on ground didn't like it. So yeah, I'm talking about administration. I'm saying there should be like a third party. Again, this is not ideal. The ideal is that it shouldn't exist. We should have a true federal state where everyone owns what they earn or what's on their ground, and they pay remit to the center. That is ideal. That should be what we should strive for. But again, we live it today. And
okay.
In today's Nigeria,
I have a question.
Is not coming.
I have a question for Stanley. Jibril, I will come back to you after this. Stanley, so we've everyone has touched on how this commission shouldn't exist in the first place. Can you tell us some benefits? Because we don't have any Niger Delta experts here. We don't have anyone from the region that can do justice to that issue or that has a personal connection to that area. So I just wanted to see if we can bring some sort of balance. Can you touch on any benefits of that commission? Do we have any track record of them delivering on their objectives or mandate? Your mic is on mute.
So I can as well pass with Niger Delta because Imo is part of the NDDC. So yeah, I can speak as someone from the region. So I do not think we need a commission. I do not think we need a ministry. Again, this goes back to the point I made last week about how when we see a challenge, instead of head-on tackling the challenge, we try to create a separate institution to deal with the challenge as an excuse to show, at the end of the day, it's not because we want to solve the problem, it's to show the world that we're making attempts to solve the problem, not because we're solving the problem, right? There is there's a Federal Ministry of Environment, there's a separate agency in charge of environment, Nordic or something, or Nostra or something. There's a separate one in charge of oil spillage. They're all related to environment, right? Is the environment any better? No. So most times when you create a separate agency, it's not because someone is trying to go all out and solve the problem. Most times it's just to show face that the problem is being solved. But let's go into the detail for those that want to make an argument for why there should be a separate entity dealing with the issues of Niger Delta. I want to start from somewhere, and I want to read out what the NDDC vision and mission is: to offer a lasting solution to the socio-economic difficulties of Niger Delta region and to facilitate rapid and sustainable development of the Niger Delta into a region that is economically prosperous, socially stable, ecologically regenerative, and politically peaceful. So I will let you all think about any of these things if any of this has happened in the almost 20 years of existence of NDDC. If there's any part of this, is the region peaceful, both politically? In fact, the most violent elections happen in the region. Is it socially stable? Is the ecology of the Niger Delta any better than it was 20 years ago? So on what basis can we say NDDC has been useful? But let's even say, okay, because one argument I've seen is that people are saying we are spending a lot of money on the region. What are we really spending the money on? I'll go to the budget, which is where the nitty-gritty of the money is. At the moment, there is a Ministry of Niger Delta, there's NDDC. The Ministry of Niger Delta the headquarters is here in Abuja. So right here in Abuja, the ministry will spend 2 billion on recurrent expenditure. They will spend 23 billion on capital expenditure. NDDC will spend 80 billion on recurrent expenditure for 2020. These figures are for 2020. If you go to the capital expenditure for NDDC, it then tells you you can then start to question what the capital expenditure for the ministry. You then start to question why exactly do we have this ministry? There are billions to be spent on office assets, managing office assets here in Abuja, not in the region, right? But it's part of the capital expenditure. There are projects for school construction. We have Ministry of Works. We have Ministry of Education that can handle it. There are projects about water, provision of water. There is Ministry of Water Resources that handle such projects. So for every single thing you look through their budgets that they are doing, there are existing ministry with experts that can deal with it, right? So this cost, the 2 billion that goes to recurrent expenditure, the huge part of the capital expenditure that goes into maintenance of office building, buying of new cars for officials here in Abuja, the 80 billion that is being spent by NDDC as personnel cost, this whole amount can go directly to dealing with specific projects in the region that can impact the lives of the people. But yet, we think somehow that creating a separate agency can tackle the challenges in Niger Delta, which is the same joke somebody set out to do with the Northeast region, thinking that establishing a commission for the Northeast region will solve the problem of insecurity, the displacement of human, the issues of poverty, education. The amount alone that goes into recurrent costs for this new agency can solve a huge problem in the region. So I don't see how an argument can be made for why we need a separate region, a separate agency to tackle this issue. If we want to solve the problem, if I was the president, I want to solve the problem. The most, if I want to do anything dedicated, is say there's a dedicated fund of 500 billion that goes into challenges in the region. And if it is road, Ministry of Works, this is a dedicated fund you can pull from to do the East-West road that has been under construction for more than 20 years, right? So let the ministry use, you don't need to hire new staff, you don't need to buy new vehicle. Let them use existing structure to build East-West road. With the creation of NDDC for almost 20 years, East-West road is still the same way it is. Who can point one project in almost 20 years that you can say was done in the Niger Delta region as part of giving back to this region that gives nearly 90% of our resources? What one project, despite the creation of NDDC, all we have seen is management of political elites. Whoever politician controls the region gets to control NDDC as a war chest to sustain the region for the ruling party, be it PDP or APC. So I don't see how anybody can make an argument that says whether the Ministry of Niger Delta or NDDC itself is relevant. It's not. How has it impacted the lives of ordinary people? How? You can't, I can't see how. Just only the recurrent expenditure. Imagine what investing only the recurrent expenditure between NDDC and Ministry of Niger Delta. Imagine what it can do to education. Only if I put this amount to primary education in the region. Just say, let's build classroom block, two-room classroom block in the region. Spend 82 billion on education, building primary school. You can imagine the difference it will make. So I don't see, there's no argument to be made about why both the commission and the ministry is relevant, other than for political patronage and maintaining of political assets in the region. It's nothing beyond that. Be it Obasanjo, be it GJ, be it Buhari, be it Yar'Adua. It is simply political patronage system. It means nothing to the Niger Delta people.
Jibril, I am going to come to you. I am going to come to you now. So please touch on, my question was going to be, I think Stanley has pretty much done justice to my question, because I was going to say, is this deliberate? Is this incompetence, or is this just naivety?
I think Stanley should be speaking before I speak. This
so we just do justice to, because we've done this is consistent. This has been very, very consistent. We've always done this. When there's a problem, we don't look at the existing resources we have to solve that problem. We look at creating a separate white elephant, to be honest, like in any way, shape, or form. And that white elephant is going to gulp a lot of resources, gulp a lot of money, and they're not going to do anything with it. And like Stanley rightly said, it's political. It looks like it's deliberate. It looks like it is not going to stop. What can you add to that?
Okay. First things first, a lot of things that I wanted to say as to possible solutions for, like Diwali said when he read, and Diwali said, and when Stanley also was reading out what the objectives of NDDC were. if we're to look at it from that standpoint, a lot of things that Stanley has already said were things I was going to say in that direction. And for lack of time, I'll try and just pick certain things and say them like bullet points. The greatest of ideas, as far as this world is concerned, are the simple ideas. When you start to complicate things, it becomes utmostly difficult to actually solve a problem. First things first, we need to understand the people that we are dealing with. If you do not understand the people that you are dealing with, like Bane said, if you don't understand your reality, you can never solve a problem. First things first. Secondly, remember what Dewale said, that even when they were looking to build a school in that region, they were told, just give us the money. How is that different from giving the money to NDDC? It's not different. It's you just giving an elitist group money to handle the region and basically to just buy their approval when you need to do anything in that particular place. It's as simple as, it's actually that simple, because they are not doing anything. And the East-West Road now is under construction, like Stanley said. It's coming from another account. The FEC is the one directly funding that. So you ask yourself the question, what is the NDDC responsible for fiscally? There's nothing. The cleanup they are doing in the Ogoni areas is coming directly from the FEC. So what is the NDDC doing? You have specialists, like he said, in different ministries. There's works, there's education, there's healthcare. If you need to solve anything in that region, let it come from those people that are experienced with dealing with Nigerians in clans. Like dealing with Nigerians, you know who the heads in the locality are, and you know how to deal with them. I'll give you another example to what Stewali said. In construction, many people try to avoid working in the Niger Delta, because when you go there, they will tell you that the boys in the community must work on your site. And when your workers, your laborers are resuming at 8 o'clock and they're closing at 4 or 5, these guys will traditionally come to site like 9, 10. By 11, 12, they'll tell you they are done. And you must pay them. If not, they will raise hell. So it's the same thing. Aside the fact that you need to, I don't know how we are going to get into the mental side of things, but you have to use another strategy. All the money should, first, let me now pick up my points. One, all the money should go to the appropriate ministries. If I'm doing a bridge, let it go to the Ministry of Works. If I'm doing a classroom, let it be in tandem between the Ministry of Works and the Ministry of Education. Secondly, they need to find out who truly is running the affairs of this area socially. Who are the community leaders, and how can you put them in check as to making sure that whatever money you're spending in that region gets used the same way you want to use it. Thirdly, we need to go back to what our Land Use Act says. Land Use Act says that land is vested in the hands of state governments, not the federal government. So if in a particular region you find anything under the soil that can benefit the federal government, the state government is supposed to liaise with the federal government as to what the exploitation is. Basically, what I'm saying is what Bane said. If you find anything on anybody's land, let it be exploited by the state, and the federal government gets reimbursed. If that's the only way the people in that area will feel like they are benefiting directly from what is under their soil, if the federal government continually has to be the one responsible for that, there will always be this clamor for we're not getting enough, and it's not going to change. Not today, not tomorrow. Thirdly, all our ministries have to work with some kind of, like Bane said, some independent third parties, administrators, auditors, or whatnot. Most of the things that are best about Nigeria, I'm sorry to say it, are private sector driven. If you have to marry private and public, even the things that we are trying to do, public PPPs, is a marriage of private and public entities. And that's always been the thing that has solved the most problems for us in this country, at least in modern times. Even to the point of creating policies, we have to go back to leveraging on some parts of our private sector for us to get anything done. Also, they need to scrap all these agencies, as far as I'm concerned. If you want to make the Niger Delta benefit because they are the goose that is laying the golden egg, then it's simple. 10% extra of whatever our capital expenditure will go to projects in that region. But we're not handing it over to any agency. We're not handing it over to any commission. We're not handing it over to any chief in that area. It will still go through the appropriate ministry. But we know that for the next 4 years, I want to load certain projects in that region. Do you understand? Like, for example, if I say I'm doing the Lagos-Ibadan in Southwest, if I'm doing in the Southeast, I'm doing the second Niger Bridge, then I can do 2 of such projects equivalent in the Niger Delta. That's the only way you're going to manage it. If you start to bring in these other people's through these agencies and this commission, it will still be the same people in those areas that are not giving their people what they are due. It has to stop. There's no way around it. When you start passing money around, look at the figures that Stanley is calling for offices in Abuja. When your major issue is what is happening in Niger Delta, and you're spending 80 billion naira every year on pencil and paper,
especially 102 billion.
it makes no sense. It's clear. And we are a poor country. Fiscally, we are a poor country. We are in a stage where every naira has to matter. Every naira you spend has to matter. It's going to be a slow process. We have gone back so much that even when certain groups of people are trying to do some things that are good in government, it's difficult for us to see because of how backward we are. So there's no resource you can afford to waste now. It must be intelligently spent. You have to be extremely clever.
Okay.
Let me not take up too much time. Let's someone else.
We have 5 more minutes. So Wale has a point and he would like to share that with us. I think that would be the last, depending on how long he spent making that point. So do you want to come in now?
No, it's more of a question, like an inflection or reflection for us. This is that I've been part of. This is probably the 5th episode of this podcast, and if we want to narrow things down, every single time we talk about, we've talked about the EFCC, we've talked about issue of leadership, we've talked about different things, and what I see as the core of all our conversation at the end of the day is that the average Nigerian is not educated, and I say that because the way we make decisions when it comes to electoral decisions is uneducated. Our understanding of our civic rights and dispatching those rights, within the confines of what's expected of us, shows that we are uneducated or undereducated. When it comes to allocating our resources, even at the top echelon of our leadership, we are corny. We think we are wise, but we are penny wise and pound foolish, which at the end of the day is a show of lack of civic education. When I say uneducated, I'm not talking about being able to do calculus or trigonometry or that kind of education. I'm talking about having an understanding of what is expected of citizenship, and at the office of the citizen, it's I think maybe this is the chicken and egg question. When the first podcast we had was, which one is more important? Changing our leadership, changing our educational sector. Which one comes first? If we don't change the educational sector, we cannot grow real leaders. If we don't change real leaders, if we don't change our leaders, we cannot invest and put priority on education. And then that's a cycle. So I think my point is that have we started seeing the trend? All our conversations, the underlying problem is that people are not educated enough. People are not making the best decision. At presidency, formulating ministries, because of like we have all agreed, because of massaging political egos, to use the lingua franca of Nigerians, which is so our decision making is not data driven, it's not driven by ideologies, it's not driven by anything other than pockets and funds. So how do we begin to think about these things? If you didn't know, by the time NDDC was created, I was living in Port Harcourt, and the governor of Bayelsa State then, and I will not mention name if you don't know, the governor of Bayelsa State then was living in Port Harcourt. You understand? So in the morning, we will be in traffic. He will be going to his office in Bayelsa from Port Harcourt. And if you are going down in the Port Road, that's that Ngoba Road.
Yes, Ngoba
Road into East-West. The man will use that same road and will be entering the gallop with us and the pothole and everything. Governor.
We're talking about 2001, 2002.
Yes. Yes. So you can imagine this east-west road that is coming from Asaba goes
From
straight
Benin.
into from Benin, goes straight into Umbiama Junction in Bayelsa. So, and you know, you can turn off at Umbiama going to Port Harcourt, but that road goes all the way straight down into the capital of Bayelsa, and it's still in that state to today. So if there's a government house in Bayelsa, it will be in that Umbiama. Do you understand what I'm saying? And if the road leads to that place is still bad after 20 years, do we really think that this is the problem? And that's how I want to end. Do we really think this is the problem?
We are 45 minutes into the podcast, so we are going to end the recording. I think next week we can either continue this debate or we can pick another topic to trash out. It's been a very, very interesting session. Thanks a lot. So I'm just going to stop the recording now. Thank you very much.